Welcome to Beat Everyone. I'm Ben Flanagan with AL.com, and you can't open your phone or whatever you're watching or reading or listening to without seeing it or hearing it. Trap game. We heard it before the season started. Missouri is the classic trap game on Alabama's 2025 schedule. 2 emotional wins over Georgia and Vanderbilt behind them, a rivalry and another revenge game just a week away. Looking past these Tigers, meanwhile, they've got one of the best running backs in the country, if not the best, in Ahmad Hardy. Stout run defense, solid quarterback. Eli Drinkwitz got them boys playing ball. They're undefeated. They're ranked 14th in the country, and for Alabama, they're dangerous. Helping me to figure all this out is a guy who knows ball. You know that. An insider and analyst from Cover Crimson, our friend Clint Lamb. Clint, good to have you back.
Appreciate that, Ben. How you doing today, brother?
Doing well. Let's get right to it. First question, Clint. Do you believe in trap games? Are they real? And is this one?
I believe in trap games. This is not one of them. I don't see how people can reach the conclusion that going on the road to play the number 14 team, that it's possible that the whatever team's doing that could potentially look ahead to playing the number 12 team at home. I understand that Tennessee's a rivalry game, but when you talk about Missouri and what they bring to the table, now granted, anytime you talk about Missouri, we still don't know exactly what they are or aren't based off of their strength of schedule, but it should never be the assumption going in, hey, everything that we've seen has looked great, but we're just going to go ahead and assume that they're not a very good football team. I don't think that's the right approach. I certainly don't think that's the approach that Alabama's taking. I think they will be ready. But at the same time, Missouri certainly presents some challenges that Alabama's going to have to be ready for.
Some of those challenges, Clint, they rank second in total defense in the nation, 4th in total offense. But you mentioned it, strength of schedule, right? Missouri ranks 109th right now. Alabama's 3rd overall, and it gets even tougher for both of these teams starting with this game. Clint, Missouri has so far played Central Arkansas, Kansas, Louisiana, South Carolina, and Massachusetts. They've won all those games, but we heard it about Alabama earlier this season, right? They won 2 straight games, but it was against La Monroe and it was against Wisconsin. So there were these caveats, but then they beat Georgia on the road. So what does Missouri's schedule, the competition they've faced, and the success that they've had, what does that tell you so far?
Based off of what we've seen, they look really, really good. On defense, they got a quality pass rush, great run game on offense. They got a quarterback that can play off of it. You talk about guys like Luther Burden and the first round right tackle that they had last year, a top 10 NFL draft pick. The transfers that they brought in seems to have done a fantastic job of replacing those guys. But we just don't know how good or not good that they are because of that competition. When you look at the individual pieces, it all seems to be there. When you can rely on a run game, you got a complementary defense that can get after the quarterback when you need them to. I do think there are some vulnerabilities in their secondary, but I just think top to bottom, this is a competitive SEC roster. It's going to be in a hostile environment. I do understand that it's an 11 a.m. kickoff. That should favor Alabama a lot more than Missouri. But based off of who Missouri has played, they've played winning football up to this point. And it's kind of like we were all saying about Alabama against Louisiana Monroe and Wisconsin. Sure, you don't know for sure that they have bounced back and they have, kind of started to right the ship. But at the same time, they've checked every box that they possibly could up to that point. So now, this is a big test for Missouri. Alabama's playing really good football as well, so it should be a fun matchup.
You play who's in front of you, right? And if you
right.
win those games, you win those games. It doesn't really matter. So Alabama shut out a ranked, but as you point out and have pointed out, a banged up Missouri team 34-0 in Tuscaloosa last year. They beat Missouri, but Missouri was nowhere near 100%. And several key players from last year's game will not be on the field this Saturday. Brand new roster. Some guys who were in that game will play in this game, but it's much different. But does last year's result give any intel whatsoever? Does it make you feel any certain way about this game?
Not really. I think that Missouri's added a lot through the transfer portal. Guys like Luther Burden, I think there was this pressure because of the talent that Luther Burden was to get him the football. I think to the detriment of that offense at times. Kevin Coleman's doing some great things, but I don't think that Missouri feels that pressure. They're a run-first offense that's going to play off of that with a a quality quarterback and a good passing attack with multiple options in the passing attack. But I think at this point, when you look at Missouri and kind of what they've done well, this is a tough test for Alabama. There's no doubt about it.
I mentioned Ahmad Hardy. The guy already has 730 yards rushing. That leads the nation right now. 9 touchdowns, averaging 7 yards per carry. The guy's clearly a beast. Alabama currently ranks 87th nationally in rushing defense. We saw Florida State and Georgia move them around a little bit. Vanderbilt in the first half, certainly before Alabama made their adjustments and shut that run down. How do you see this matchup? Missouri's rushing game against Alabama's rushing defense.
Yeah, this is another one of those where you like what you saw from Alabama over the last 3 quarters against Vanderbilt. They seem to have got some things figured out. I thought Justin Jefferson played some really good football. I think Tim Keenan's getting healthier. He's getting closer to 100%. Guy like London Simmons really starting to come on strong, playing great football. But when you look at Missouri and just the fact they have that kind of outside zone scheme, they got running backs who have great vision, cut back lanes, all of those opportunities. If there's a lane, more than likely Hardy's going to find it, and so will Roberts, their backup. I think he's one of the best. He's probably the best backup running back in all of college football right now. This is going to be a test for Alabama because while we do think they are taking steps in the right direction, there's a whole lot more data on the struggles of their run defense. And I think from a third level, as far as secondary fits, I think some of that is overblown by people. But at the same time, there have been, anytime you've seen guys like Damani Jackson or, even Zabian Brown at times, when they get in those one-on-one matchups where they got to get a running back to the ground, the offense has created those isolated matchups. They haven't been consistent enough in being able to get that done. So, you look at an offense like Missouri, who has running backs and an offense in general that can really put you in those straining situations. They're going to have to continue to work on rallying to the football, getting ball carriers down on the ground, especially out in space. That's just, at this point, we don't know how improved Alabama has become on that front, so we'll have to wait and see.
Well, let's reverse that then. Alabama finally had success running the ball last week. Jam Miller looked like the guy that we had heard about during fall camp before he got injured, obviously. Alabama ran for 271 yards against Missouri last year. We talked to Mike Johnson last week, who said that the run blocking was there with Georgia, that maybe Alabama just didn't finish the runs, and then obviously really effective against Vandy. Missouri is the top-ranked rushing defense in the country, but again, we throw in the whole caveat of consider who they were playing, if it even matters. Does Alabama make another breakthrough running the ball this week?
I do think that they will have some success. Will they have the success they had against Vanderbilt, where at times it just kind of seemed like they could run at will? Probably not. In a lot of ways, I think Vanderbilt or Missouri is a better version of Vanderbilt, and just the way that they can put strain on you east and west offensively, defensively, really good pass rushers. But I think whether it's first or second level, Trotter, one of their linebackers, he's one of the best run-stopping linebackers I've seen on tape so far this season. I think he's kind of vulnerable as far as in coverage. I'm hoping Alabama can maybe exploit some of those matchups when available, but I think Jam Miller's playing really good football right now. I think what he provides, not just from a rushing perspective, but, being able to catch the football out of the backfield, pass protection, but when you really start to focus in on what he does as a running back, as far as being able to run with power, being able to make defenders miss when he's in those one-on-one situations, having the explosive home run hitting ability, which you really haven't seen him be able to showcase so far this year. And then just the vision, I think his presence is really taking Alabama's offense to another level. And you even saw that against Georgia. Like, they had shown nothing up to that point that would have warranted Georgia showing the respect to their run game that they did in, during that contest. So the fact that Kirby Smart and Georgia were willing to respect that because they knew the kind of talent that Jam Miller was and what Alabama has from an offensive line perspective, they got people movers up front. Big, powerful guys. Missouri will do the same. Now, granted, they're going to try to take away Alabama's passing attack with Ty Simpson. A lot of weapons you got to worry about in the passing game. But, one thing that opposing defenses are going to have to do all year with Jam Miller in the backfield is respect Alabama's run game.
Jay Miller just seems like a complete football player, and it seems like night and day, quite honestly, when he's in the game and when he's not, or at least when he's been available. In Georgia, you saw that, and now it just looks like he seems to be back to 100%. But who knows with the collarbone? Clint, you're always posting great clips and analysis of what you see after the dust settles, right? When we've had some time to kind of take a breath after a game. Who's a guy who's popping on film right now? Maybe a guy that we weren't talking about as much heading into the season. Does Alabama have any breakout players on either side of the ball in your view?
I think Yanze Pierre's playing great football right now. I think that's desperately needed with the injury to Quay Russaw. This is the type of game where you would love to have Russaw, but with him being out, you're looking at a guy like Yanze Pierre he played all but one snap against Vanderbilt this past weekend, which for an edge rusher, an off-ball linebacker, or an on-ball linebacker, excuse me, that's pretty rare. You don't see that too often, or at least you haven't seen that too often at Alabama, who typically has quite a few options, but he can get after the quarterback. I think he's doing a much better job of setting the edge against the run. And he's just been a playmaker when Alabama needed, whether it be a pressure, a sack. He's playing really good football right now overall. I think the up front defensively, you've got a lot of different guys. I think Kelby Collins is starting to play a lot better. Obviously they needed to rely on him a little bit more with James Smith out the first half against Vanderbilt, but I thought he played it's by far the most that we've seen him this year, but it's also probably the best I've ever seen him play in college, period. Whether you're talking about Florida or his limited time at Alabama, London Simmons, as I said, Edric Hill, which I do think Edric Hill on that Cedric Alexander, long touchdown, he did get kind of rolled out of there. There was a double team on duo and holding the point of attack, being 284 pounds. It's a little bit difficult for him at times, but I think overall he's playing really well. And I think up front defensively, when you talk about the importance of being whether stopping the run, providing some complementary pressure to what you're going to have on the edge, I think the fact that you've got so many different defensive linemen starting to step up, that should really bode well for Alabama, who's trying to compete in the SEC.
This is Alabama's third road game of the year. They lost in Tallahassee. They won in Athens. They started pretty fast in both games, and then they struggled in the second half. Kickoff is 11 a.m. Missouri's coming off of a bye. Does the film, or just what you've seen from the team so far in these two road games and in the other games, does it tell us anything about how the team performs on the road yet?
There were so many data points that would tell you that they're not a good road team. And so that's, going into the Georgia game, you had nothing to go off of to say otherwise. To assume going into that game that they were going to be a completely different football team, I think that's a little bit different than now, because it seems like, once again, they're taking steps in the right direction. Athens is a very hostile environment. It was a night game. That place was electric, no doubt. Kirby Smart defense. So the fact that Alabama was able to go down there and not only take control of the game like they did pretty early, but then also figure out a way to win when Georgia started to get the crowd back involved, started making a comeback, that was overcoming a lot of adversity during the game. So you got to give them a lot of credit. This being an 11 a.m. kickoff is something that I hadn't thought about until the coaching staff brought it up, or at least someone asked the coaching staff about it, was the fact that they practice in the mornings. So this idea of having to wake up, I played D3 football, and every single one of our games was at noon. I'm going to tell you, going from playing at 7 p.m. in high school to playing noon every day or every weekend, it was a complete shell shock to my body, having to wake up and get ready to play football by that, 11 a.m. or noon. And so the fact that Alabama has already kind of adjusted to that by waking up, you got to get food in your stomach. You got to get yourself mentally ready to go out there and battle and play, winning football in practice. I actually think that bodes well for them going into this game. So despite the fact that it's an 11 a.m. kickoff, we saw even, Nick Saban teams at times, they struggle with that. But at the same time, Nick Saban teams also practice in the afternoon. So they never really got their bodies acclimated or adjusted to doing that. So this is one of those rare occasions where that could actually end up benefiting Alabama, compared to a lot of teams who deal with, trying to get up or get energized in the mornings.
I like the 11 a.m. kick. We've talked about it on this show before, Clint. Are you a fan of the 11 a.m.? Or there are a lot of people, the majority of college football fans hate it. I like it.
I think from an energy standpoint, even as a fan, you wake up and it takes a while to get going. You normally I love the fact that there's those first round of games and you can go ahead and start watching and getting into it. And even when it's Alabama, there are benefits. You get to go ahead and find out there's not any sort of nerves or anxiety all throughout the day, waiting for 2:30 or waiting for 6 or 7 or whenever. So, I mean, I think there's trade-offs for sure. This is the type of game, though, typically 11 a.m. kicks for at least the SEC. That means you're playing somebody that you're scheduled, favored to beat by 35, 40 points bare minimum. So they're typically not fun games. Having a number 14 versus number 8, I mean, that's going to be a lot of fun. I could see this really going either way. There's a lot of things that favor both teams. So, I mean, in this instance, I think an 11 a.m. kickoff is just fine.
Well, you're teasing to it. You're teasing it here. There's an account on Twitter. You responded to them. It's called Bama Perspective, and they were reacting to someone saying that they're shocked that people think that this is a tougher game than Vandy. Just started throwing like good stats around quarterbacks completion percentage, Ahmad Hardy's numbers, obviously. Composite stats says Missouri is a lot better than Vanderbilt. It's a road game, like we mentioned. Does that mean Missouri will win? No. Does that mean Alabama's going to win by this many points? No. It's a good post basically telling Alabama fans to just lock in, right? Get ready for a tough game. Clint, do you agree? Like, what's your general feeling about how this actually plays out on the field?
Yeah, I completely agree. I just think that there's way too many things that play into Missouri's favor. I'm not saying Missouri's going to win. In fact, I think Alabama's going to win. But I just think that at this point, the fact that it is on the road, the fact that, you're playing a team where it's like, how much has Missouri really had to reveal up to this point? Now, granted that they could have already revealed a lot of it and you just don't know it, but they also could still have some in the tank ready to go. It doesn't matter what time it is. I understand typically the 11 a.m. kickoff is going to favor the road team because maybe the home crowd isn't into the game as much. But anytime you've got Alabama coming to town and you feel like you've got a chance, especially, that place is going to be rocking. The seats are going to be filled. It's going to be a tough environment. And we only have one data point to say Alabama can handle really tough environments on the road. So while I do think, once again, that they're moving in the right direction on that front, this would be a great opportunity for them to show some sort of consistency or continuity when it comes to that. We just haven't seen it yet. And when you look at what Missouri has, whether it be offensively or defensively, they have deficiencies, but at the same time, they have guys who can play winning football in enough areas where, and it kind of doesn't match up great against Alabama. As far as the dual threat quarterbacks and handling mobility, the fact that you got a couple of running backs that you can lean on, good offensive line, some weapons in the passing game, a good complementary pass rush where if you're Missouri and you can establish a lead, allow your pass rush to kind of tee off on the opposing offense, all these things can kind of play complementary football together. And there's another element of this that I don't think we're talking about enough, and that's special teams. Granted, Connor Talty, I thought he bounced back extremely well after that first miss, but he has missed some kicks this year. And so him being in a hostile environment, if this game comes down to a field goal, can you trust Connor Talty? That's a question we're going to have until he kind of shows it a little bit more. But at the same time, I know I'm saying all that to, it probably would concern Alabama fans. Overall, I think the X's and O's favor Alabama. I think they're going to be able to go in there and throw the football around. I mean, you look at the fact that when they aren't able to get their run game going, they're already comfortable being able to make their passing game kind of an extension of the run game. The fact that they've got a ton of different receivers they can rely on where you can't hone in on any one guy. I just think overall Alabama is a better overall football team. But I want to remind or at least acknowledge the fact that Missouri is a really good football team too, and Alabama needs to bring their A game on Saturday.
100%. And there's the whole Drinkwitz component here, man. This guy already playing mind games, trying to get in the head of Kalen DeBoer. Jumped on the coach's conference call talking about asking a question if he's going to wear the hoodie on Saturday in Missouri. I don't trust the guy. I think that I think he's playing chess here and trying to get into Kalen DeBoer's head. But he's a funny guy. Last thing for you, we sprung some trivia on you last time, and it was a lot of fun looking back at some of the old quarterbacks who played at Alabama. This is Alabama, Missouri's. This is just their 9th meeting, and Missouri was part of the Big 12 before they jumped to the SEC. But the first was a neutral site game, the Gator Bowl, actually in 1968. Played in Jacksonville, Florida. Missouri won the game 35-10. Clint, Bear Bryant was obviously the coach of Alabama in 1968. Do you know who the head coach of at the time Big Eight's own Missouri Tigers was?
No, not even a clue.
I didn't know this either. It's Dan Devine, the guy who used to coach Notre Dame. He coached the Green Bay Packers at one point. But on the Alabama side, do you know who Alabama's starting quarterback was in this game?
What year?
1968. I didn't know it.
No. Just No, I don't know.
It was the quarterback after Ken Stabler. So this would have been Scott Hunter. Scott Hunter was the quarterback. I didn't know this. I was curious about the history of these two teams and saw that they've seldom played each other throughout the years. And they played, I think, like a few times in the 60s and 70s. And then obviously during the Saban era, it was pretty one-sided, lopsided. There are a lot of games that stick out. That 2018 beatdown in Tuscaloosa, Tua and Jerry Jeudy just throwing all over them. And 2014, they had that SEC championship game where Blake Sims, I think, was player of the game, MVP of that game, where he gets walloped by Shane Ray on a deep ball to DeAndre White. Some memorable moments. And then, in 2012, too, Eddie Lacy running all over them in Columbia. So I didn't know if there was there's also been on Twitter, I'm sure you've seen, where people have been asking or sharing their favorite Alabama, Missouri plays in the last several years. Was there one play from Alabama, Missouri that stands out to you?
The Ruggs one for sure. I mean, just the speed. I don't know that I've ever seen a human being run that fast, to be honest. That's where I knew, I'd always heard that he was fast, but I'm like, this guy's definitely touching in the 4.2s whenever he gets to the combine.
Did that play count? Wasn't there a Ruggs catch and run where he went for 70 yards? It was either maybe it was that game or Southern Miss or something where it got called back. But like you said, it was just clear that dude was just different.
Speed. Yeah, and I mean, I think Alabama, maybe not quite in the 4.2 range, but they got some dudes that can run. I've heard really good things about, obviously we've all heard about Rico Scott and how fast he is, but I mean, you've got a bunch of players. So, I mean, is this wide receiver room the right outs? No. But at the same time, it's as close as we've seen. And I think from a number standpoint, they can run even a little bit deeper than maybe those guys could.
I'm convinced, obviously, Jeremy and Ryan, we know what those guys can do, but I'm convinced with Horton. I think that dude's real deal. And Brooks and Scott have had their moments so far this season. But with Ty Simpson, I mean, I was talking to some people the other day, they're just comfortable and confident when he's just standing in the pocket, looking downfield. They think that they just think the guy's going to make a play, considering who he's throwing to. And if the offensive line can keep him upright, it seems like Alabama's got a shot no matter who they're playing.
Well, I mean, and I think one of the big elements of this game, yes, you don't want him taking unnecessary sacks and running around back there and putting yourself in those insurmountable circumstances. But what I will say is his ability to elude pressure in the pocket, extend, going against this type of pass rush that Missouri's going to be bringing to the table, he's probably going to have to do that maybe even a little bit more often than we've seen in a lot of these other games. And just the fact that he has that ability and he has such a great feel for kind of manipulating and managing the pocket, I think that could end up being a huge key to this game, because when he extends, their ability to kind of go off script, whether it be him or the wide receivers, this is a lethal, dangerous offense, kind of very Bryce Young-esque in that sense. So, I mean, I'm certainly thinking that's going to be a major factor in this game as well.
It's a scary one. Like I said, they're dangerous. They're ranked that highly in all those categories for good reason, and we're going to find out on Saturday. Let's show up Alabama. The Alabama team that showed up in Athens shows up in Columbia. You got to check out Cover Crimson. Clint Lamb, you know your stuff, and we appreciate you, man. Thanks so much for doing this again.
Absolutely. Good talking to you, Ben, as always.